Anybody who wants to know why I'm not speaking it's because of that story. That's the backstory. But let
Yeah.
me tell you why I should be speaking it, and I'll do this very shortly.
Hell yeah. Tell
Short.
him why.
Um, in Iraq, I was a weapons inspector, and I did it for 7 years. I was uniquely positioned to know the truth about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction program. I wasn't pro Saddam. I was pro truth. All the people that call me a Putin shill today, a Russian propagandist. Hey, dudes, man, this isn't my first rodeo. I used to be called a shill for Saddam. I used to be called an Iraqi propagandist. Why? Because I told the truth. I told the truth about weapons of mass destruction. People didn't want to hear the truth. In addition to speaking out and putting fact-based information, I made a decision that because I was uniquely positioned with information, when I say uniquely, let me tell you how many people had the same knowledge I had. None. So when I say unique, I was unique. I was the only person who could do what I could do. The only person. There was no one else that could do it. And that's a big burden to put on that's on your shoulders when you realize I know the truth, but the smart thing would be to walk away.
Say
The
nothing.
smart thing would put your head down, walk away, and get the job.
Right.
Grab the golden key. I was offered the golden key. Paul Wolfowitz offered me the golden key. Paul Wolfowitz sat me down in Washington, D.C. National Airport and laid out the I think it was at that time, I call it the $6 million plan, but I'm going to say it was more like a $3.5 million plan. But basically, all I had to do was play the game, and I would get money, I would get prestige, and I would get an entree into the club. And I'm looking at it going, okay, but what do you want me to do? I
Lie.
need you to lie. And I said, I can't do that. And so I was now out of the club, not making any money, but instead of quitting, I made things worse. I made a documentary film that nobody wanted me to make. That the FBI attacked me viciously for that. You can go on my website, scottritterextra.com. It's called In Shifting Sands. It's free. You can watch it.
Yeah,
And
it's
if you
great.
watch it, I can guarantee you no one's going to watch that and say lies. You're going to watch that and go, holy cow, that was all true. I made that movie in 2001. Understand that. The idea of making that movie was to get people to be exposed to the truth. But instead, the FBI attacked me, shut
Yeah,
it
and what do you
down.
know? The timing of your first conviction just kind of coincided with that.
Well, it wasn't convict, not a conviction. The first,
Not a
the first,
conviction,
the
right?
first
When they
incident.
started messing with you.
Well, that's exactly what they wanted to do. They tried to destroy my life, and they almost succeeded. But
Timing, folks, timing.
even after that, I said, now what can I do? And George Bush met with Tony Blair in September of 2002 in Crawford, Texas, and they were hatching up a scheme to go to war. And their whole thing was, because there's no weapons inspectors in Iraq, we have to assume that Iraq is doing the worst things possible. And I went, holy cow, that's an argument that will resonate, because people will be afraid of that which they don't know.
Right.
I said, but how do you get inspectors back in, especially after the history of my history, where my teams were used to spy on Iraq and assassinate Saddam and all this kind of stuff? How would the Iraqis ever let them back in? Who could make that case? The guy they trust, the father of all crises, Scott Ritter. They trust me because I never lied to them. They trust me because I was a mean son of a bitch. They trusted me because I stood my ground and fought for the rights of inspectors, and that I did the job with integrity and honesty. So I traveled to South Africa. Tariq Aziz was going to South Africa to get a bypass surgery. So I traveled to South Africa, and I met Tariq Aziz, who was the deputy prime minister. And I said, you got to let me into Iraq. Now, I'm doing this as a private citizen, ladies and gentlemen. People keep saying, what can I do as one person? What can one person do? Listen to what one person did here. We're going to go to war against Iraq because we're saying there's no weapons inspectors, and therefore we have to assume the worst. So one person flies, meets with the deputy minister, and says, I have to be allowed to speak to your parliament. And he said, you're never going to do that. No foreigners ever address the Iraqi parliament. He said, why do you want to speak to the parliament? I said, because I want to make the case for weapons inspectors to be allowed back in. He said, they'll never be allowed back in. They're all spies. I said, you don't understand. If you don't let them back in, you're all going to die. And I made the case. Tariq Aziz got me into Iraq. I spoke before Parliament. Never happened before, ladies and gentlemen. A very unique thing. They didn't screen my speech. I insisted that it be broadcast live with all the media there, so nobody could walk away and say anything. After that speech, I was able to speak with the leadership of the Iraqi government to the highest levels. And when I came back to the United States, after I told the Iraqi government they have to let inspectors back in, they said, we'll think about it. I came back to the United States, I was attacked viciously. I mean, I was called a shill for Saddam. I was called an Iraqi propagandist. Everything bad. I was getting ready to go on CNN's Crossfire, where the producer said they're going to crucify you. They're going to hammer you as an apologist for Saddam. 5 minutes before airtime, a news story came out. Iraq just agreed to allow weapons inspectors back in. Why? Because of me, one man. One man got weapons inspectors back in. And that should have been enough to stop the war. It wasn't. But when people say, oh, he's not anti-war enough, really, how many of you have done what I did? How many of you have done that? How many of you have put it all on the line? How many of you have put everything on the line? One person going out there as far out as you can get. I got extended beyond what you could understand. And I did everything, and I succeeded. I did what I set out to do, get weapons inspectors back into Iraq. It's just that the U.S. government was never going to allow the truth to be told. But I at least gave the truth a hearing. And so all these people out there right now with their little, he's not anti-war enough. I'll put my anti-war resume up against yours any day of the week. And there's not a single person out there, not a single person out there that has done what I have done to try and stop a war. So when we come here today, and I want to talk about Russia, I want to talk about this conflict, I want to talk about Russophobia, I want to talk about how we have misconstrued Russia and Vladimir Putin. And everybody's going, well, you're a Russian propagandist. I'm like, no, see, you called me a Saddam propagandist before. It didn't work. I am simply in favor of the truth, the fact-based truth. Let's talk about the truth. And then from that, once we get the truth down, it sort of becomes obvious what we should be doing. And we shouldn't be supporting a Nazi regime in Ukraine. But anyways, that's where we're at. They don't want me to speak at the rally because they're afraid of what I'm going to say. They don't want me to speak at the rally because it's not about anti-war. It's about empowering a certain political party, the Libertarian Party. They want to use the anti-war rally as a way of legitimizing themselves, mainstreaming themselves, but they want to make sure that only they get the credit. So they don't want someone like me to come in and speak and throw out ideas that they're not in control of. Nick Brana wanted me to give a speech about my book, about my mission to Russia, about trying to build bridges, to break down the walls of Russophobia, to put arms control back on the agenda, to make sure that the world doesn't end in a nuclear holocaust. And God bless Nick Brana. And his counterpart in the Libertarian Party, she wanted it as well, but her party wouldn't support it. So they insisted that I be pulled from the venue after they first they invited me, then they disinvited me, but then all the speakers said if Ritter doesn't speak, we won't speak. So they put me back on, but then they disinvited me again because the attacks, twice convicted pedophile, can't be allowed to speak. And I could have fought them. I actually was going to fight them. I was so mad. People look up New York defamation laws. There's 5 things you have to prove. All of them were proved except the 5th one, which is damage. You can't just assume damage. There has to be demonstrable damage. And if they kicked me off this platform, then we have demonstrable damage. And I owned the Libertarian Party. And I keep trying to tell them that, guys, I owned you. You're really stupid. What you did was stupid. But
I agree, Scott. I have to tell you, I've been a libertarian for 27 years, and I broke with my party. I left the Libertarian Party because of how they treated you.
Yeah.
And I honestly wish you would sue them for slander. And I hate to say
well,
it.
the problem is if I did that,
longtime libertarian, but they did in fact slander you.
libel, I think is
libel.
Right. But the thing is, here's the thing, and I was going to do it. I was going to do it. You want to go to war? Let's go to war. But then, and I'm not going to give their names away, but these are well-known people who are speaking, and they came up, and Nick came up too. Nick said,
they
Scott,
stood up for you.
You have every right to do what you're doing, every right to do it. And we wouldn't condemn you if you did. But one, if you do this, there won't be a rally. The Libertarian Party will pull the permits and they will shut this thing down. There won't be a rally. And all the people we've worked to come and speak at this event won't get a chance to speak, and we may never get them back together again.
Right.
And then the other thing they said is, even though you're right, this will become about you. And people will say that you're petty, that you put your personal interests above that of the collective. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've been attacked for so long. Maybe it's time I did that. And I have the perfect opportunity now. I have a legitimate legal case that can go out there and challenge people who like to label me pedophile.
What a choice to have to make, though.
But I made it was a tough one, because here you are with the winning hand. And but I went, okay. I mean,
stopping a nuclear war is more important.
It's more important than winning a legal case. So I backed off, and I said,
there's still a statute of limitations. You can sue later.
No, there has to be damage. There has to be damage.
There does have to be provable damage.
By me making the decision to back off voluntarily, I eliminate the damage clause, and the lawsuit goes out the window. But that's okay. You know what? Okay. To be honest, the last thing I need right now for my poor little heart is another
court case.
Yeah, another court case. So I got one going right now for my reputation and my future.
Where do I go to get my reputation back? Right? Isn't that the old?
Yeah, but the other way you get reputation back is just to be you, be honest about it.
That's right.
Like I said, if you guys think that Scott Ritter is the perfect human being, you got another thing coming. There ain't nothing perfect about me. I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good friend. I'm a great father. I'm a great husband. But I'm as human as the next person. I'm not, literally, no. So I was a Marine, people. I was a Marine. Okay, understand what that means. We're a lot of
testosterone. I hear in the Marine.
We all look good in our uniforms, but we are very energetic people, and Marines are known for hard drinking and whatever else they do. I'm not proud of it. I'm not bragging about it. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm not trying to be something I wasn't. But I will say this too. At my trial, I had easily 20 letters from women who I had interacted with professionally in the anti-war thing, all writing to the judge saying, I have never met a more professional person, a gentleman. There was never any untoward activity. He never did that. So even though I'm saying that I was human, I never, ever, ever, ever mistreated a woman. Never once in my life have I mistreated a woman. Never once have I assaulted a woman, sexually harassed a woman, anything like that. Did I drink to excess? Yeah. Did I get in fights? Probably some I shouldn't have gotten into. Things like that. But everybody's like, well, that Scott must have a sexual history. Not as much as you think it might be, guys. I was actually a gentleman. I was raised to be a gentleman. I was raised to treat women right, and the record is clear that that's the case. Again, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm not a bad person.
You've always
And
been
if
a
all these
gentleman to
people want
me.
to label me as something, it ain't gonna stick. So nice try.
I want to share with people. I'm going to bring up your blog. You wrote about this, and I'd like to direct our listeners to read this blog by Scott Ritter. Can you guys see that? There
you go.
Go to scottritterextra.com. And Scott, I mean, what he told us today is probably even better than the blog because he went into much more detail. But here's the blog. Get out of my damn backpack.
That's from the movie. It was a George Clooney movie, Up in the Air, where he is the guy who goes around and fires people and all that. But he gives a great speech in there. His character gives a speech about a backpack and how if you're going to go on a journey, what's in your backpack and what you end up putting in your backpack. And I want to go on this journey. I want to go on a journey that will break down the walls of Russophobia and hopefully end up with a 1 million person march in Central Park that puts arms control back on the political agenda. I think people need to understand what I'm saying here. In June of 2024, I want to do my best to get a voting block that tells the politicians that are running for election for national office in November 2024 that arms control is on the table, just like any other issue is, and that if they don't support arms control, if they don't articulate in favor of arms control, they won't get the vote of this massive block. I want to empower arms control, not as a libertarian, not as a Republican, not as a Democrat. So that's my journey. I have this backpack, and I need to make sure that that backpack isn't full of nonsense. So what I say in the blog is you can either be walking with me on this journey, and I welcome it because nobody should go on a journey alone, but I'm not going to carry in my backpack. And it was a message to the Libertarian Party. You guys aren't going to get a free ride. I'm not going to do all the work for you. You don't get to attack me and then jump in the backpack and accompany me on this journey. You guys have opted out. Get the hell out of my backpack.
And while I'm on your blog, I also want to plug the speech that unfortunately you won't get to give Sunday at the rally. It's called The Best Speech I Never Gave. And you have published it for the world to read on your blog at Scott Ritter Extra. And
a lot of people asked me to record it. And so
I was going to ask you to read it today, but I think you have other plans.
What we did is Jeff Norman, again, a good friend of mine, we actually I gave the speech and he recorded it and he's doing some editing.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to the anti-war rally begins at 12:30 on Sunday. At 12 noon, we're going to broadcast this. We're going to stream this speech.
Oh, cool.
So we're going to kick off this rally with the speech they didn't want me to give. So I guess I'm going to have to change the title.
Are you also going to be speaking at another event concurrent to the rally?
Not concurrent. The rally, whether I physically attend the rally, I mean, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. I'll do that.
Still time to change your mind, libertarians. Invite him back.
I don't know, because here's the thing. There's so much rancor. There's so much. I mean, I've received death threats by the dozen. And so I'm not a coward, but I am a little concerned. Do I go there and what happens if a guy takes a swing at me? Do I really want to spend Sunday night in jail waiting for a Monday morning court appearance that won't happen until Tuesday because Monday is President's Day? And no, I don't want to do any of that.
Way to ruin a weekend.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I am. There's a great guy named Caleb Maupin. I may be mispronouncing his
Caleb,
name.
that's our
Caleb.
friend Caleb. He's been on the show. Just
Yeah,
had him
Caleb,
on
good
last week.
guy, and
Good guy.
he heads
He
up a great
invited you,
group.
didn't he, to the CPI event after the rally? I hope you'll
He
come
did.
and
And I
speak.
am going to the CPI event because
Yay.
they are quality people,
They are.
and they have what's interesting is they have a group. There's a guy I did his I've done his podcast. He's just a college kid, Bradley Wasser, I think his name is. And I've done his and he asks great questions, and his podcast gets a lot of attention whenever I go on it, which is I'm glad for him. But he represents a demographic of college kids who are politically motivated and they want to do the right thing. And man, I couldn't think of better allies. So I'm going to go there and try and build bridges, try and build alliances, and see if Caleb and Bradley and all the CPI people want to join me on this journey, and we can end up in Central Park with 1 million people. And let me tell you, my book just got picked up in Russia. It's getting published. Now I'm breaking news right here. It's getting published in Russia. And I'm going on a book tour in Russia. And I'm bringing a documentary film crew. And then we're going to make a documentary film that I'm going to then take around the country and as a trailer to attract attention amongst groups in the country. And in June of 2024, we're going to premiere it live in Central Park as part of this demonstration. And it will be premiered live in Russian at the same time in Moscow, where hopefully there's 1 million Russians in the street in solidarity with Americans saying, we don't want war.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? I don't know if this influenced you in any way, but you've probably seen that wonderful documentary from 1978 called The Unknown War. It was made by Burt Lancaster. You remember that?
Did I just steal somebody's idea? Did I just plagiarize?
No, you didn't steal it, but it was unprecedented during the Cold War that an American film crew was allowed to come to Russia to make a 20-part documentary series about not just World War II, but specifically the war between Germany and the Soviet Union.
Oh, no, I'm familiar with that. I'm familiar with that.
You're familiar with that, right? It was a big deal at the time. And we had unprecedented cooperation in the making of that film from the Russians. They were allowed access to the Soviet film archives. And it's honestly, I've been binge watching it for the last 4 weekends. It's so good. It's free.
Well, we're not going to make a 20-part series. We're just going to make
that's a big
we're going to make one feature-length documentary, but the goal is to premiere it on that date. That'll be the world premiere as part of this thing. I've got to get some allies. I got to get some people that understand how to do this kind of stuff. We have some ideas. There's this guy named Roger Waters. It's a pretty big deal, and he has a wonderful song called "Two Suns in the Sunset." And wouldn't it be awesome if Roger Waters played a set that finished with that song to remind everybody what's at stake here? There's just some things that can happen here that can make this, again, it's not a demonstration against something. It's a demonstration in support of arms control. That's it. We're not trying to dictate an outcome because that's the business of nations. We're not here to tell America and Russia how to do their business. What we are saying is you have a job to do. Get to work. I'm not telling you how to do it, but get to work. Stop this nonsense where we're not talking with each other. Stop this nonsense where the only remaining arms control treaty expires in January or February of 2026. And when it's gone, ladies and gentlemen, we're gone because it's off to the races with an arms race that cannot be controlled, especially given the fact that we can't talk to one another. The big problem right now in America is Russophobia. We are so inundated with nonsense about Russia. I'm not telling you to love Vladimir Putin, but I would like you to at least know who he is before you condemn him.
And at least be good to the Russian people. None of this is their fault.
No. Well, and the Russian people, and this is the purpose of the movie, because I want to go over there. And I talk about this in my book, how when I went over there as a weapons inspector, I literally just spent 2.5 years trying to learning how to kill Russians. That's all I wanted to do. Literally. I was a Marine. I lived, breathed, dreamed about how I can take the art of war and kill Russians.
But then you told a story about how your perspective changed. I forget what year it was, but
No, 1988.
yeah,
New
it's a
Year's.
Russian family that invited you over for New Year's dinner,
Igor
right?
Yefremov. He was a missile designer, built the missiles to take out America. So he spent his life learning how to kill Americans. And he invited me and 3 other Americans to his home on New Year's Eve. And it was one of the most intimate experiences of my life. And what I mean by that is Russians have very small homes. They're not like the United States where small homes. So when you come into that home, there are no secrets. It is there. The family is there. Everything about the family is there. And he let us in, and we realized that this man is just like us. He loves his wife. He loves his children. He loves his neighbors. He invited his neighbors in. They tell jokes. Some of the jokes are good. Some of the jokes are bad. You know, they cry. They laugh. They can get angry. They're human beings. And then they took us down to the street, and they have the giant Christmas tree in the center of town, and the entire city gathered around, and we're singing songs and greeting people. And you're sitting there going, "This is communism. This is paradise." And I don't mean that naively. I'm just saying, wow, humanity. And I stopped hating Russians that night. I fell in love with Russia. Not the blind, naive love, but I realized these are fellow human beings. And what we're doing with this treaty is a good thing. Because I wasn't all on board with this treaty up until that point. I was doing my job, but I was more about playing the spy versus spy game. Yeah. At that point in time, I said, no, this treaty has to work. This treaty is what it's all about. This treaty is how we end.
This is how we end a Cold War.
How we begin something new. Yes. And the treaty did its job. Understand that we failed going on. We didn't follow through, but that's not the treaty's fault. And I believe that the United States and Russia, we deserve a second chance. And that's why I wrote this book, because this book isn't just about the history of the INF Treaty. It's a template of hope, because things were really bad in the 1980s. Yeah. And yet this treaty got us past that. Things are really bad today, but a new arms control agreement can get us past that. And maybe this time we won't drop the baton. Maybe this time we'll finish the race. And it's a good race to be in, ladies and gentlemen. It's the best race to be, because it's the race of survival of humanity. And so that's the journey.
Arguably the only race that counts, huh?
It's the only race that counts. Everybody else, look, I'm not trying to trivialize anybody's beliefs. I know that in the United States and Canada and everywhere else, people have strongly held beliefs, and some of them are, directly in opposition to other people's strongly held beliefs. I know there's people out there who believe the Second Amendment should be interpreted one way, and the other people believe it should be interpreted another way, and that gun control is a big issue. I know that the right to life, abortion, is a big issue, and I'm not here to line up with anything. But what I'm trying to tell you is, regardless of your position on gun control, regardless of your position on abortion, none of it matters, because we're all going to die if we don't get arms control back on the agenda. And so I need everybody. I don't care if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a progressive. I don't even care if you're a libertarian.
Please forgive me, Scott.
Not you. I have no problem with you. There's a party that I have problem. Leave all your ideological baggage at home and agree on one thing, that the human race has to come together to bring arms control back on the table. And we can do that if we unite as Americans, and we can do that with the help of not just, because I have to tell you, I did a podcast with Bulgarians the other day. And when I brought this up, he's like, we can demonstrate in Sofia. I said, yeah, you're going to demonstrate in Sofia. Yeah. And we're going to get them to demonstrate in Paris. We're going to get them to demonstrate. It's going to be a damn worldwide. I want the whole world in the streets on that day, at that moment, sending a sign that we are in solidarity with the American people who are trying to save the world. And
give us the date again. What's the date again?
We don't know the date. I have to go pull out. It's going to be in June of 2024. Like I said, I got to figure out how you go in and you get
22nd. Make it the anniversary of Operation Barbarossa.
There you go.
The Unknown War. It premiered on June 22nd, 1978, for a reason.
Well, there we go. Maybe I'll have to see if June 22nd is a weekend. But anyways, the bottom line is, I'm going to find some people that know how to do, like Roger Waters knows how to put on a big concert. So he has people that know how you go to Central Park and how you book that, how you get the permits, how you do this. There's other people that know how to do this. I can't do this by myself. I've got to have help. I've got to have people that say, we're here, we're part of a team. And once we get that team together, we can make this happen. This can really happen. And I'm telling you right now,
put me to work, bro. I want to help.
Everybody can help. I mean, look, the best way to the best thing anybody can do is just show up. Just show up. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, just show up. And why not? It's to save, if you're a grandma, it's to save your grandchildren. If you're a parent, it's to save your child and your grandchildren. This is about the future of the world, the future of humanity. And we got to find a way, you know, to get past the stupidity of labeling people, of trying to destroy people, to discredit people, and instead focus on the future and how to get beyond where we are so that we have a shot at life. I mean, life is hard. It's a struggle. There's nothing guaranteed. It's going to be hard no matter what. But at least give people a chance to experience life in all of its wonder, all of its terror, all of its horror. Give the next generation a chance to experience what we experienced, a chance, a hope to do better than we do. But they can't do better if we destroy the world. And we're going to destroy the world. Nuclear weapons will be used. Look at the scare that's going on right now. Everybody's talking about the potential of nuclear conflict. Imagine for a moment that we eliminate arms control so nobody's talking, and now they're building all these weapons that are going to be put in the field with the tensions the way they are right now, with the total distrust, where we think the Russians are out to get us and they think we're out to get them. So the first mistake, one mistake, and it's all over. And it's not like the Cold War where you had 30 to 40 minutes to decide whether or not it was a mistake. The new weapons with hypersonic warheads, they're going to be hitting targets 5 minutes after launch, which means that the second something's detected as being launched, they're going to come in with a complete retaliation. And even if they go, oops, mistake, it's too late, guys. It's all over. And it's going to end. People make mistakes. And so the only way to stop this outcome is arms control. Arms control is the only solution. It's the only thing people should be focused on right now because nothing else matters. And don't tell me, I hear people, that's a job for the Arms Control Association, the professionals. They got us where they're at, where we're at right now.
We've been waiting for them to do something and they haven't. So
the professionals don't get, no, the professionals, when they get what we need to do is go above the professionals' heads to the politicians.